When they said cruising is fixing your boat in exotic places. Sailboat graveyard in the armpit of Charlotte County is not what I had in mind.
We are in an anchorage off Longboat Key near Mar Vista restaurant, which is delicious. And today we are trying to get all the way back to Pelican Anchorage, which is on Cayo Costa. It's about 50 miles as the crow flies, and that's a lot longer than we've been doing since we've been here on the West Coast. We've only been doing like, I don't know, 15-mile days most days. I think we've done a couple 20s and that's been it. But it's further complicated by the fact that there are 11 bridges between here and there. We are still waiting for first light here. It's just about light enough for us to get going. It is 6:52 in the morning, and we have light for about 12 hours, so we are hoping we can get there. The reason that we are going in one straight shot is that there are not a lot of good anchorages where we can take the dog ashore where there is room, because the west coast of Florida has a lot of permanently anchored boats. And is not exposed, and it's not supposed to be too bad overnight. We have a couple anchorages picked out if we have to stop a little early, but Sarasota, Venice, we're just not willing to shell out for a marina, so we are going to put the hammer down and try to get all the way down to Cayo Costa, because we need to get back to Punta Gorda to get some projects done, because we've been gone for almost 3 weeks, and we started looking at how many days worth of projects we have left to do before we start heading north again in March, and it's a lot. So let's see how bad our bridges are today. The first bridge of the day, the Ringling Bridge in Sarasota, was also our only fixed bridge. Siesta Key Bridge was the start of 10 restricted bridges. We were greeted on the other side by some special visitors. Dolphins on the west coast of Florida are known for being pretty playful, but they grow bored if you're moving slower than 7 or 8 knots. The stars aligned, and between the current going with us and us pushing to make the next bridge, we were going 7.5 knots, and they stayed with us for almost 45 minutes. At Stickney Point Bridge, we had more than 1.5 knots of current behind us, so Andy took a little extra time on the radio to ask the motorboat on the other side if we could go first. Technically, the current gave us the right of way, but we always like to confirm with the other vessel to avoid any miscommunications. Blackburn Bridge is the lowest bridge on this route and also on demand, which means it opens all the time. The bridge tender has to walk to the center of the bridge to operate it every time as well.
Through that bridge. Now we have to go through that bridge, and there's like a 10-minute wait between the two because that one's on every 10 and this one's on.
That one's on at 20 starting on the top of the hour, and that's on 20 starting at the bottom of the hour.
Yes.
So, literally, bridge 1, bridge 2.
made it through our 10th bridge, and the engine like was trying to stall and running like garbage.
Actually stopped entirely.
It stopped, but I barely got it started again. So we got to this anchorage, and we dropped the hook, and we're gonna take a look before we get any farther out. And this is one of the only anchorages along here, so.
Yeah, it was convenient because it was literally right next to where we stopped running, and we thought we were going to have to commit to the anchorage under sail, but we didn't have to. So, so what do you think the problem is?
I think it's fuel related. I think something's up with the fuel pump. I got the old fuel pump that I can put back in.
Any issues though when we've run that engine
Yeah,
since we
I want
left?
to check a couple of things. I want to see if we're getting any fuel. Did we get a bad batch of fuel at that marina?
It's a possibility.
Because everything else is new. And the injectors keep popping like there's water in them. See if I can drain the water separator.
Okay. Ready, break. What is that noise?
That's the pump.
Why does it sound like that?
Clean the filter first.
Okay, because that's the easier fix.
That's the easiest thing.
Okay. Empty bottle to to drain fuel into. So close yet so far.
Fuel's perfect.
Fuel looks fine. That just came straight out of the filter, so if there was water in the fuel, we would definitely be seeing it there. I go find an anchorage to be able to take the dog ashore because the engine's like not functioning properly. This channel is like almost not even as wide as we are long. But we've done all the diagnostics we can, so.
If you want to slow it down, I could put the motor on the dinghy and we can have that on the side ready to go. Stalled again.
It's fine. Keep holding steady again, so this other anchorage is only like 5 miles away, so hopefully we'll get there in like an hour, and then we'll have a place that we can at least take the dog ashore, and then we'll figure out from there. Yeah. It's been a day. We started out the morning by losing our dinghy, which we quickly recovered, but it was a little bit of a... We also started having a little bit of like a knock in the engine. It's not a knock. It was more of like a tick than it was a knock. But so we were trying to deal with that. Andy spent probably, I don't know, maybe like an hour earlier in the day trying to do some diagnosis on that, and we weren't really getting anywhere. So we think it's fuel related. There's no like evident water in the fuel or dirt in the fuel that we like can see when we drained the filter, but it seems like the most likely issue because we haven't been having any problems, and we filled up, and this started happening basically immediately after we filled up. So we're gonna try to limp it all the way back to Punta Gorda, but we weren't gonna make our anchorage we were trying to make tonight. So we are in a different little anchorage, which is actually really nice, next to Don Pedro State Park, which is just north of Boca Grande. Be here for the night. It has a dinghy dock to take the dog ashore, where we stopped a little further north to do some diagnosis, had nowhere to take him to shore that we could find, without having to call some private businesses and basically beg. So tomorrow morning we'll get up, we'll finish our last bridge that we're supposed to finish today, and head back up to Punta Gorda tomorrow. Pretty foggy day here. The engine is working just fine. We had a little bit of a hard time starting it, but but Andy like combined the house batteries with the regular batteries, and it started right up after that. So we're about to do the last of the bridges we were supposed to do yesterday, and then we'll be basically out on the bay. We've made it back to our slip that we're using for this winter, and we think, figured out what the problem was with the engine. It worked pretty well on the way back. We had a little bit of an issue, but we sailed most of the way, so it wasn't that big a deal. But what went wrong?
So we had this like ticking noise. Like it sounded like it's coming from the top of the engine, and it sounded like injector knock. Like if it's injection, when the diesel engine's running, if it injects the fuel at not the exact amount of time, it'll make a whole bunch of noise. And it can sound like a tick or a clank or something, because diesels just make all sorts of noises. Unsophisticated ones like ours. But I was doing some diagnosing, and what was recommended to me was to crack the injector line on each cylinder, which would lower the pressure and make that cylinder not work, and that would tell you which one the ticking is coming from. So the ticking was coming from the front one, the frontmost number 1 cylinder, and as I was like cracking it and uncracking it, making the noise coming back just to confirm it, it went away entirely. The company that rebuilt them for us 30 hours ago, and they said there must have been some dirt in there, and the effort of cracking it had allowed the dirt to come back out of the injector and solve the issue. And that kind of lines up with our previous experience with dirt in the injectors last spring.
The other symptoms we were experiencing through all of this was that the engine was smoking quite a bit, and it was white smoke, not blue smoke, so we weren't that concerned about it. And we've been having issues with white smoke anyway, and we thought that getting the injectors rebuilt would solve it, but it hasn't, or at least it hadn't really.
No.
But in troubleshooting with the guys that rebuilt the injectors, they gave us some good advice on kind of what they think might be the problem with that as well. So
with no other prompting, he said, "You're not losing coolant, are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm losing a little bit." And I thought it was because I just had a little leak. And he's like, "Those exhaust manifolds are famous for leaking and leaking coolant into the exhaust manifold side and creating white smoke." Us up with a new cast aluminum exhaust manifold to replace the aluminum extrusion style with the steel end plates, which is apparently a nightmare.
It is at least running smoothly now. There's no tick. There's no weird knocking anymore. It wasn't really a knock. It was definitely a tick. Yeah. But there's no noise, bad noise now.
No money repair. I like it.
Just a lot of frustration and headbanging.
Next time, now that it's finally getting hot here in Florida, we're ready to install our diesel heater.